story. 17-year-old Jaden Carter was flying home alone for the first time, seated in economy class on a cross-country flight. He had dreams of becoming a doctor one day, inspired by his late mother, a nurse who raised him with compassion and grit. Midway through the flight, a commotion broke out in first class. A pregnant woman had collapsed, clutching her stomach and gasping in pain. The flight attendants were panicking. A call went out. "Is there a doctor on board?" No one answered. Jaden, who had taken multiple first aid and emergency response courses, unbuckled his seatbelt and rushed forward without hesitation. Despite a flight attendant trying to stop him, he pushed his way through and knelt beside the woman. She was sweating, in distress, and barely able to speak. Jaden calmly assessed her condition. He elevated her feet, cooled her with wet napkins, and coached her breathing. His tone was gentle but confident, everything you'd expect from someone twice his age. A retired nurse sitting nearby joined to assist, confirming Jaden's instincts were spot on. Together, they stabilized the woman until the plane made an emergency landing. When paramedics boarded, they asked, "Which doctor helped her?" Jaden just smiled and said, "I'm not a doctor yet." Later at the hospital, the woman's husband arrived, a wealthy tech entrepreneur named Daniel Rhodes. He was told that a teenager had likely saved both his wife and unborn son. Stunned, Daniel demanded to meet him. Jaden was about to head home when a black SUV pulled up outside the terminal. Daniel rushed out, hugged him tightly, and said, "You saved my family. I don't even know your name." Jaden, a bit shy, simply said, "Jaden Carter. I just did what I hoped someone would do for my mom." Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes. He offered Jaden anything: money, gifts, even a scholarship. But Jaden shook his head and said softly, "Can you help get my community a proper health clinic? That's all I want. Somewhere moms like mine don't have to wait hours for care." Daniel broke down, a billionaire, humbled by the request of a teenager not thinking of himself, but of others. A month later, the Carter Community Health Center opened in Jaden's neighborhood, fully funded by Daniel Rhodes. And Jaden? He got a full ride to medical school, quietly gifted by the man whose family he saved. Would you like a YouTube-style thumbnail caption or short spotlight? News of Jaden's in-flight heroics spread like wildfire. Major networks picked up the story. Teen saves pregnant woman on plane. Young hero's humble request sparks change. Jaden tried to keep a low profile, but it wasn't easy. Reporters waited outside his school. Classmates, once indifferent, now treated him like a celebrity. Even colleges began reaching out. Schools he never dreamed would notice him. Despite the attention, Jaden stayed grounded. He kept volunteering at the local clinic, now renamed the Carter Rhodes Health Center, where he assisted nurses and shadowed doctors every weekend. One afternoon, Daniel Rhodes arrived unannounced. "Jaden," he said, smiling, "we've started a foundation, the Jaden Initiative, focused on funding young people who want to become doctors in underserved communities. We want you to lead it someday." Jaden was speechless. "I'm still just a kid," he said. Daniel chuckled. "Maybe, but you saved my world. Now I want to help you change the world." Just when Jaden thought life couldn't surprise him anymore, he received a letter. It was from Harvard Medical School. A full scholarship, personalized, backed by a recommendation from a Nobel Prize-winning doctor who'd heard of the teen who made a billionaire cry. But Jaden's journey wasn't just about fame or titles. He spent that summer tutoring kids in his neighborhood, telling them, "You don't have to wait to be grown to make a difference. Just care. That's where it starts." Would you like part 3 to continue into his college years? A year had passed since Jaden Carter became a national hero. Now 18, he was preparing to leave for Harvard Medical School, one of the youngest ever accepted into their pre-med fast-track program. But just weeks before his departure, tragedy struck again. Jaden was walking home from the Carter Rhodes Health Center late one evening when he heard tires screech and a loud crash at a nearby intersection. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward the wreckage, a two-car collision. Smoke poured from one vehicle. A woman screamed from the other. He recognized the voice. It was Nurse Diane, the retired nurse who had helped him on the plane, the very first person to call him a natural doctor. Jaden slid into action. He pulled open the crumpled door, crawled in, and began checking for injuries. Diane was pinned by the dash, bleeding heavily. The other driver, a teenager, lay unconscious nearby. A small crowd gathered, filming. But Jaden didn't care about cameras. He called out orders. Call 911. I need cloth. Anything clean. He used his own shirt to stop Diane's bleeding. He checked the other driver's pulse. Shallow, but steady. Emergency responders arrived minutes later and immediately recognized him. Is this the same kid from the flight story? One asked. Jaden ignored the question. This woman needs a trauma surgeon. Now. Both Diane and the teen survived, thanks to Jaden's swift actions. The story made headlines again. Teen hero saves lives again, this time on the street. Jaden Carter, the future doctor who won't stop giving. But something changed after that night. Jaden finally realized this wasn't just a string of heroic moments. It was his calling. On the day he left for Harvard, the entire community gathered to send him off. Daniel Rhodes was there. So was Diane, in a wheelchair but smiling. As Jaden boarded the train, someone shouted, "Go make the world better, Dr. Carter." And he smiled, not because of the title, but because he knew it had already begun. Would you like a part 4 where Jaden faces challenges in medical school, maybe racial bias, pressure, or a major ethical dilemma that forces him to choose between fame and doing what? Harvard Medical School was everything Jaden dreamed of, and more intimidating than he ever imagined. The buildings were grand, the halls filled with brilliant minds. But as one of the youngest and only black students in the elite program, Jaden felt the pressure mounting. At first, professors praised him. "You're the plain kid," they'd say. But soon the whispers started. "He's only here because of the media." One lucky moment doesn't make a doctor. He's the PR guy, not the science guy. Jaden struggled silently. The coursework was brutal, and one mistake during a clinical rotation led a senior surgeon to bark. "You're not in the spotlight now, Mr. Carter. This is real life." But he never quit. Instead, he studied harder, stayed longer in labs, shadowed patients others overlooked, especially those who didn't speak English or couldn't afford private care. Then came the ethical dilemma that tested everything. During his second year, Jaden was invited to intern at a top-tier private hospital, funded in part by Daniel Rhodes. It was sleek, wealthy, and catered to VIPs. Jaden excelled there until he discovered something disturbing. A woman was denied life-saving surgery because her insurance was invalid, despite being stable, responsive, and fully treatable. Hospital policy labeled her non-priority. She reminded Jaden of his mother. Jaden pleaded with his attending, "We can't just let her sit there. She could die." The response was cold. "We help who can afford help. That's how this place stays open." Jaden was shaken. That night, he contacted Daniel. "Did you know this is happening at your hospital?" he asked. Daniel paused. "I've always trusted the board to handle operations. Why?" Jaden didn't hold back. "I became a doctor to save lives, not to sort them by income." Days later, Daniel pulled all funding from the hospital and redirected it toward expanding the Carter Rhodes Health Network. Jaden was offered the chance to lead the Ethical Standards Board as a student liaison. The press caught wind. Some hailed him as a future reformer. Others called him a naive idealist. But Jaden stood tall at a press conference and said, "If medicine isn't for everyone, it fails everyone." That night, Diane called him. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You saved me twice, once with your hands and now with your heart." Would you like part 5 to follow Jaden as he becomes a full-fledged doctor, or explore what happens when tragedy hits